Make It Right, the manufacturing podcast.
Greek philosopher Heraclitus said change is the only constant. Whether it's small changes that take place on a daily basis or sudden big change that gets thrust upon us, there is no escaping change. And we've all been adjusting to sudden change in the last number of months. But as we get back to our new normal, its impact will go with us. Welcome to the Make It Right podcast. I'm Janet Eastman, and last week on episode 108, my guest was supply chain expert Filippo Mauri, and he discussed how the COVID-19 pandemic has been a game changer for business. He joins me again this week with a European perspective on how the shifting business landscape is impacting developing countries and how social distancing has flattened the hierarchal playing field. And that's where we pick up the conversation.
I was amazed to see, if you work on, let's say, on Zoom or whatever, on Teams or Skype, whatever you name it, actually you can see in the background of the speaker, let's say, a piece of their home. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and actually there are some let's say signs into the corporate let's say environment, which are very important. How if you go on a certain floor where you have all the executive, there is a certain spacious offices, a sort of rarefied air. I mean, you can feel it. This is a way to communicate that this is the executive floor, for instance, right? And you know that when you get there, it's like that. So there are signs in the companies that actually tells you more or less how important somebody is, or even the tie or whatever. There are let's say non-verbal, let's say signs that actually are transmitted, let's say to tell how powerful somebody is. And that is over on Zoom, where everybody is very let's say underdressed compared to the dress code, to the normal business dress code, very casual. In the back, you can see part of the kitchen or part of maybe the living room or the basement, and so independently of the seniority, actually people do look the same.
Mm-hmm.
And this is erasing, let's say, completely all the signs of differentiation across the hierarchy, and actually flattens down and everybody. And this helps to me the sense of belonging to a group. You're not speaking of an organization anymore. You're speaking of a group of people that actually work together. So it's that is, I believe, also an aspect that is really defining the future. It's like you with Zoom, you enter in somebody's home and actually discover a little bit more of his humanity, and that is a big change to me.
Mm-hmm. That leveling out of the hierarchy has been kind of a positive thing. From your perspective through all of this, what has been lost, though? What's not likely to return post-pandemic, whether it's good or bad?
Well, I believe that this situation actually demonstrated that we can do business, for instance, maybe working 2 or 3 days from home. That we spend maybe 2 hours in the commuting, okay, 2 hours that are completely lost. That actually, and 2 hours over 10 or 12, actually it's a big percentage. And those 2 hours that we lose every day commuting, actually we can see that they're coming back, and are coming back in terms of productivity, in terms of quality of life, in terms of work-life balance. I mean, this is something that is here to stay. You really don't want to go back to the previous situation, because that probably, COVID left us a lot of bad things and a lot of tragedies. But on the other hand, actually COVID demonstrated that certain things can be done even better and even more efficiently, with a better life for the people, even working from home, and the technology is there, let's say, to make it happen. So um, uh, 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 it's a big learning. We should not come back on the 40 hours a week with very fixed timetables. This is something that is over, I think.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and then I believe that on the other hand, what we should not lose is this, um, let's say, is the kind of uh, interaction that is happening, and suddenly, and we were briefly discussing about that. For instance, the fact of being into the headquarters, okay, actually allows you to create a network. Okay, so if you work in the headquarters in the capitals or whatever, this gives you within the organization a sort of competitive advantage. Okay, because you are where the decisions are taken. In a world that is completely delocalized, where everybody's working more or less from home, okay, being in the office, in the headquarters, is no longer a competitive advantage. So the employee who works in New York, or the employee who works in Ohio, okay, um, they are on the same level in terms of access and the participation to the business. Okay,
Hmm.
and this is a great chance, because this also flattens the organization. It does not allow you anymore some fictitious advantages, like, for instance, the fact of being close to your to where the decisions are taken. Well, it's just flattened, and you are as close as anybody else, with the same, let's say, uh, electronic distance, and so there's no difference among the employees in the peripheral, let's say, offices of a subsidiary, maybe in West Africa, and the ones that are staying in Paris, and that's amazing. And this is a great chance also for countries that do not host center of decisions, let's say.
Hmm. I wanted to ask you about that. Like, these less developed countries, like those that would be in Africa, they aren't, as you said, in the headquarters, but that doesn't matter anymore. So, what is the opportunity for some of these countries in Asia and Africa that are smaller?
Yeah, um, I believe that there are some, it's very difficult to generalize, of course, but clearly, first, if we look at the developing world and the developing countries, and of course, there is a level of resilience. Okay, there are bigger problems compared to, let's say, US and traditional US and Europe, but but those countries are actually more, in general, more resilient. Okay, more, let's say, used to handle difficult situation or unexpected events.
Hmm.
Okay, so and everyone who has, for instance, worked in general in Africa, you see, or in certain countries in Latin America, or also in Asia, you learn very fast, and you're really admired by how people can adapt rapidly to a complex environment where things do not go normally how you may expect to work. So that is an incredible opportunity, because suddenly we found ourselves in the same situation. So what you may, for instance, if you think about a pandemic, okay, you don't necessarily think that pandemic may happen in Switzerland one day. However, okay, you're not surprised if an epidemic or another disease, there is an outbreak somewhere as we have seen, for instance, in Nigeria, or in Sierra Leone. Uh, Today we have the demonstration that Sierra Leone or are, you know have, are at the same level as Switzerland, because pandemic or outbreaks can happen in both sides.
Hmm.
So the one that is more equipped to and more resilient is the one actually who can take advantage, take more space. So for the countries, of course, there are less, let's say, structures and less means, but in general, the locally they are more prepared to handle this kind of situation and react very fast. So I believe that this big resetting that is happening across the world actually is going to spread tragedies, okay, but also is going to level up and offer new opportunities on the market to maybe startups or new businesses or that are actually taking place in what is called the developing countries. However, there is one thing is that first, if you see the evolution of technology, the evolution of for instance, of the e-commerce, the incredible growth, actually you can see that those kind of activities are actually very strong, for instance, in countries like Nigeria. If you think about the new developing technologies like, for instance, blockchains or actually e-commerce, actually you can see them happening in having a center of excellence also in countries that unsuspected countries. And this is we knew that that was happening, and this pandemic is actually make it so visible that probably is a great opportunity. I'm so happy for that.
Hmm. What kind of risks or unexpected opportunities do you think companies actually should be taking right now? Once, as we're moving through this and countries are opening up, what are the risks or opportunities people should be
Mm.
grabbing onto?
The risk, to me, the big risk is to try to go back to normalcy and to go back to the business as usual, as I was mentioning before.
Hmm.
Um, the consumer habits, at least in the short term, let's say, okay, this year, 2020, is going to be probably an uncomparable year compared to the previous, let's say, the previous years or the previous. So the concept of, for instance, how good or bad I'm going to do in this quarter, this is this is a little bit strange in this period, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so you're probably need to look at the at a longer period in terms of the performance of the company. You need to see how good your company was able to react and change quickly. Okay, and the risk is to do and to try to re-implement the same format, because this is not going to work anymore. Maybe and for sure it's going to be a forced, let's say, structure. So we need really the risk is to obey to the need to, let's say, to deliver the quarter, to deliver the year, like anything had happened. Well, something had happened, and uh, we may use this year to learn as much as we can from what had happened and restart as soon as possible. Maybe you can measure your performance from September to September or whatever, but trying to apply old models to this world already was probably not the right thing to do uh, before the pandemic. But as the pandemic has accelerated everything, probably it's going to be like putting, the wrong size of a suit on yourself and wear it, and you may not feel comfortable in the years to come.
Hmm. Hmm. Filippo, what would be your key takeaways that you think that manufacturers and business leaders should be thinking about right now?
Oh, right now.
Yeah.
Right now, I think that the problem is that how to uh, how to bring people to allow people, create the conditions for people to deliver. Okay,
Hmm.
refocus. So and this is a major undertaking, let's say, and also try to refocus on how should everybody start working in a safe way, and try to remeasure, let's say, the performance of the companies or the manufacturing activities in a way that we do not that we actually understand how the machine actually starts back during the after the pandemic, after this forced stop. I mean, restarting a machine that has been stopped for 3 or 4 months, okay, is, we know that is something that may not happen as we expect. Okay, and the same is to restart a factory after 3 months of perturbed activity. So we need to be extremely careful that in this transitory phase where we actually wake up again and start back, and we bring people safely to work, we do not take risk in terms of safety. Because probably, equipment has been stopped for a while, and also we listen, and we improve the connection and the synchronization with the business in order to restart with the right foot, and start selectively produce what is really business enhancing. So I believe that we need the key thing is to restart from the fundamentals, and get the machine turning safely.
Hmm. I guess the whole key is don't try to rush and make everything happen at once, because everything could go wrong. So you just have to take it slow and steady, and make sure you can get it rolling
Yeah,
the first
and
time.
absolutely. And for me, the dimension, and we're talking about right now, okay, but the dimension of being prepared, okay, and keep being prepared is fundamental. It's not that right now, because we actually don't know what and God forbids, I mean, we don't want to have a second wave, but everybody's speaking about the second wave.
Mhm.
So if nothing happens, fine, okay, and we're all happy. But we need to be prepared. If in October or November something happens, we will have to take advantage of this hard-earned experience to be prepared by then. And we know already that probably something is going to happen, and we should look at that. We should restarting now, but restarting in a more let's say robust way, in order to face the future in a more reliable with a more reliable supply chain.
Mhm. Filippo, I always love talking to you because you bring a great perspective, and I really appreciate you.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, joining us on Make It Right this week. It's been an interesting conversation, and you brought some things to light I hadn't even thought about. So thank you very much.
No, it's my pleasure, and it's really fantastic to speak to you as usual. So
I hope we can chat again.
enlightening.
Yeah, we may just check in with you sometime in October or November to just see how things are. But I really appreciate your time right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much indeed. It's my pleasure.
Filippo Mauri is a supply chain expert. He's a senior advisor as well who works for global manufacturers. His company is iMundo Global. That's our show this week. So please check out our Twitter and LinkedIn feeds that are on our podcast page. And you can subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. And the Make It Right podcast is brought to you by Kevin Snook. He's a leadership advisor and author of the best-selling book, Make It Right: 5 Steps to Align Your Manufacturing Business from the Front Line to the Bottom Line. Until next time, I'm Janet Eastman. Stay safe, and thanks for listening to Make It Right.